So, let's review The Boys Season 2. This one is not as strong as the first season. I will warn you, I am not super keen on Season 2 of The Boys. I did enjoy it, but it's not quite living up. Anyway, cue the intro. So like I said, this season does not feel as strong as the first season. I say that because it just feels a little loose. And this is a problem that I feel like many TV shows often go through when they're doing their second season. Often the first season feels like a Hail Mary. It feels like they're throwing everything out there. This is a plot and a script that has been worked on and sat on, and something that's really been pruned. And then often the next season can feel like things were a bit rushed, like there were more hands in the pie. Like there were just a lot more complications, and often on the other hand, writers don't always know what to do with characters once they're established. So an opening season that establishes great characters and really has something great to say, it's not always guaranteed that they'll know what to do with what was built in season 1. Now, before I get too deep into this, and before you get the wrong impression, I think that season 2 is pretty good. It's an enjoyable season. I genuinely enjoyed watching it. It has all of the staples of The Boys. I mean, the jokes are pretty funny most of the time. A lot of heads explode. There's a lot of violence. There's a lot of absurdity. And the special tone of The Boys that made season 1 so unique is here. And it's in full force. It's back, and it's better than ever. I mean, you cannot deny these things, but some of the things that I found interesting were that it felt like they dropped the ball in a few places and they weren't exactly sure where to go in a few places. So let's start off with one of my number one problems. I've already talked about this a little bit in one of the podcasts. I believe it was episode 2 of the Courtright cast. So if you check that out, you might know what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it here too. The Deep is a bad character. Not a bad character in that the purpose he served in season 1 was not adequate, that it wasn't good, that it didn't propel the story forward and have something worth watching in it. But that for some reason, the Deep has been cast out of the 7, and he's also still in the show. Like, I'm just confused as to why he's still in the show. Early on in the season, it got a little better as the season went, but early on in the season, we had to watch scenes about the Deep and what he's doing off in this podunk nowhere town, wishing that he was back in the 7, and there was just, I'm struggling to figure out what was enjoyable about those scenes. It felt like we were taking all of the speed out of the train every time we flipped to his scenes. Not only that, I'm going to be honest, every scene in which we had to see those disgusting gills or watch them talk or someone touch them or shove their fingers into them, I get it. The showrunners probably wanted that to be really uncomfortable, but it was so it made me squirm. I didn't want to watch those. It was past the point of making me uncomfortable, and it made me just like, can I like look away? Can we skip this scene? Because the thing was, it didn't feel like it was adding much value to the story. The Deep storyline of wanting to get back into Vought, it was just not. Now I'm hoping that it comes back. It seemed like there's a chance that they're trying to bring him back in some way and that he's going to have a meaningful part to play. But I did not feel like he ended up having that this season, which was a letdown, because if you're going to make me sit through as much of his story as they did, I don't feel like they handled it particularly well. I felt like there was too much. And I feel like that mostly because they might not have had enough content. I feel like there were other things that they could have focused on, and it was like they just needed something to fill the time. And that was what they chose. And I just don't really get it. I like the guy that plays the Deep. He's a good actor. He seems like a good guy. Not in the show, but in real life. But I don't feel a need for that character right now. And I definitely, if you want to keep that character in the show, I don't think that they should. he should be so prominent until he comes back in a more meaningful way. So while we're talking about characters that aren't the greatest, this character is, it's not that he's not the greatest, it's that his turn this season was kind of annoying. And that character I'm talking about is Huey. Hugh Campbell. Our little goody two shoes soy boy, whatever you want to call him. I thought that he did a really good job in season 1. He had a really great dynamic with Billy Butcher. He had a lot of good things to say, and he had an interesting character arc. Now, he does have a pretty prominent character arc in this season, but whereas season 1 felt like it was a lot about Huey, season 2 did not focus on Huey as much. At least it didn't feel like he was just the main character, whereas it felt like he was a lot of the driving force of season 1. And that was a good thing in season 1, and I think him not being the driving character in season 2 is also a good thing. But his arc is not particularly satisfying. First of all, because I'm not in love at all with where they take it, with him deciding to be like, I'm going to take a step away from the boys and like try and do things the good way. And honestly, just knowing the boys, they're probably going to try and turn that arc on its head in the next season and show how that did not work out at all, because spoiler, he's not. He ends up working for like what looks like is going to be a pretty major bad guy. So obviously that's not going to go well. But I don't want to get that far into the season yet. I found Huey's character, not just his arc, but his character in general, to be a lot more annoying this season. He played a lot more of the pansy boy. He was worried about everything. He was clingy. He was like annoying. And I get that part of that's his character, but it got to a point where it was just annoying to watch him move. It became annoying to, like, whenever he would have something to add to the conversation, it didn't feel like it was adding substance. It felt like he was just standing in for this caricature of the type of character that he was supposed to play. And I don't know, it really wasn't my thing. But aside from those two characters, I really enjoyed what they did with a lot of the other characters throughout the season. But one thing that I noticed, that it felt like this is something that you could almost feel, not just something to like, I'm not going to go through every single plot point and talk about it, but it feels like they didn't always know how to tie things up nicely in this season. And not that they need to tie things up in that they need to finish the season with everything tied up, but just it felt like there were some loose ends or some events or sequences that didn't always make sense, like things that got kind of left out or they never had to explain, so they didn't. And that left it feeling a little bit pieced together. It felt like it wasn't a fully fleshed out idea at times. Because, I mean, even if you look at like Stormfront are, I guess you could say she's our main antagonist obviously Homelander is the main antagonist of the series in general up until now. But I felt like they didn't do the best job with her trying to build her up as a villain, because they had you as the viewer, at least me as a viewer, very conflicted through a lot of the season up until about halfway through the season, where she really comes out as a bad guy. Where she comes onto the scene, you know, your first introduction to her is her doing like an Instagram live video of them like on set of a movie for the Seven superhero movie for Vought. And she's kind of annoying as hell right off the bat. We're like, who on earth is this and what's she doing? Oh, she's a new member of the Seven. What are we doing here? Everything's kind of confusing. This is like a new plot point that feels like it's just been inserted and you're like, what's going on here? Then within like an episode or two, you actually find that she's like really likable in those few episodes. She's just snarky. She's doing these interviews. She's saying everything that's on the viewer's mind. She just seems kind of likable. It's not that she's a lovable character, but I found myself immediately turned off by her and then turned right back on in the next episode. Like I was like, I really don't know what to think of this character. And that's not a problem in and of itself. It's not that not knowing what to think of a character, especially a character like that, is bad, because the fact that she turns out to be a major villain means that it's good that if they had the ability to put the viewer on the edge of their seat wondering what they really feel like about this character. But where they took her character, which I know this probably has a lot to do with the comics. I haven't read the comics. I'll go ahead and say I'm not worried about the comics. But the character turning out to be like a white supremacist Nazi type of figure it's a fine arc. There's nothing wrong with the arc, but it feels kind of like it's just thrown in there as like a plot point. It doesn't feel like it has a lot of life to it. And while towards the end, Stormfront starts to come out and show her true colors, and her true origins in a very in-your-face kind of way. Up until the end, when she really comes out with it, there aren't a lot of telltale signs. It doesn't feel like something that they're trying to build up. It just feels like a sticky note that they stuck on her back, and they're like, "Oh yeah, by the way, she's a Nazi." It didn't feel like it was like, "Oh wow, this character's kind of gross. Oh, this character is like..." The character never really gets under your skin, because they also give her a lot of qualities that, and when I say qualities, I don't mean good qualities, but they give her a lot of qualities that are reminiscent of the times that we live in. And she's incredibly internet savvy. She's got people making memes, really running these internet campaigns up against Vought early on, up against these superheroes. And she turns that on the super villains. And there's just a lot of conflicting elements to her character that I didn't feel like... I feel like it's okay for there to be conflicting elements to the character if they, in the end, they feel cohesive, but they never really feel like they tie in, like it becomes a cohesive character that's truly believable. And if you're going to have a villain with such a vile worldview, I feel like it needs to be a little more believable, because she was kind of evil at points, but I felt like once the actor started having to act like a true supervillain, she lost a lot of what made the character intriguing. Early on, she was kind of intriguing. I thought the actor herself was doing a pretty good job with it, but after she got more accustomed to her role as a supervillain, after she kills Kimiko's brother, it becomes a little bit like when she starts taking control, trying to team up with Homelander and having really, really uncomfortable sex with him, like it just doesn't feel as believable. It doesn't feel like she was as comfortable playing the villain as she was playing like this snarky new, peppy new superhero. So, not really sold on Stormfront, not totally happy with it. They kept her alive at the end of the season, so maybe they're going to do something more with that. They don't really tie that up. Not sure that I want to see her come back though either. So I don't know where that's going. I doubt she comes back as like a villain unless it's like way later in a season. But yeah, not a ton of love for that arc, though they had to have at least something different in terms of a villain, because Homelander couldn't just be the total main villain of the second season, because he really did head up the entire antagonist department of the first season. But that brings me over to the finale, and that the finale was really bombastic. It was really explosive. A lot of things happened, and obviously it was dramatic, and there were some rewarding moments and some less rewarding moments. And they ended with a bang, and I'll give them that. And I enjoyed the finale, but I did feel like there were a few elements that could have been changed or done a little better. Like there were some things that were a little bit disappointing. Like we get this moment when Stormfront is attacking the boys and Kimiko is there, and they're having a little spat, a verbal spat before they fight, like all superheroes do. And, Kimiko finally speaks. She doesn't speak, but she laughs. But you think as the viewer that this might be the point in which she, like, something has happened and she's going to speak finally and say something really, really awesome or epic or disrespectful, but she just laughs, and then she signs something to Frenchy, who translates it to Stormfront in some kind of spunky little crap talking line. And it's all right. It's all right, but it's a little bit of a, like, gets you excited and then it drops you back down, because I felt like the series could have been better served by Kimiko getting a better shot at Stormfront. It felt like a bit of a cop out, and it didn't even make a ton of sense how they're fighting Stormfront and they're not doing a great job of it. There's a random moment where Frenchy screams, "Get to the car, it's the only way." And he's talking about all these explosives in the car. And then Stormfront obviously immediately hears that, and she torches the car with her lightning. And you're like, Frenchie, why on earth did you do that? It's like just little forced moments like that kind of felt littered throughout the series, but especially the finale where they were trying to make some things happen and they kind of had to shove it right in there because they didn't really know how else to. It just didn't make it wasn't super believable. And then I felt like they took a very important moment from Kimiko in that she didn't get a real moment to cheer for when she finally does laugh. I mean, she doesn't speak, but she laughs. And maybe they're saving that type of thing. Maybe she's going to speak later on in the series. Maybe they're saving that for a later season and it will be even more rewarding then. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with just this little nugget of excitement, of foreshadowing. I'm okay with that. But I really felt like she should have gotten more in regards to Stormfront because Queen Maeve randomly showing up is not a bad it's not a bad plot point to have Queen Maeve randomly show up and help them kick Stormfront's butt. But like, it didn't make a ton of sense. It was like, oh, by the way, we're just out here in the middle of nowhere fighting and we just exposed Stormfront and now Maeve knows exactly where they are and they're going to come help beat her. And then we get this kind of fun sequence, but the actual, for a superhero fight, I know The Boys isn't known for like explosive choreography. It's, most of their action is more shocking than it is like, smooth fight choreography or anything. But the general fight with Stormfront was really kind of shoddy looking. It was mostly just like, hey, punch. Like there were some of the stunts in which like the girls didn't look like they were throwing real punches. Like they were just, meh, I'm hitting her. Hit that Nazi woman. And then obviously The Boys does shine in some of the dialogue, some of the things that they say to Stormfront. They start to really beat up on her and the music plays and it's really rewarding because you're just watching this Nazi get the living crap kicked out of her. And it is really rewarding, but it kind of feels like awkward when you realize that they have the chance to like actually do something important here to Stormfront, but the plot armor is so strong that they can't. So instead of taking Stormfront down, instead of killing her or subduing her in any way, they just kind of kick her a bunch repeatedly. Just a bunch of girls, girl power, go girls, kicking this superhero and then allowing her to just tear off into the sky and fly away. It's like all obviously for the sake of her being able to go and find Butcher and Becca and Ryan, her son. It's obvious that was what she was meant to do, and they had to let her do that. But I felt like they were taking something away from Kimiko by allowing her like neck to get snapped, and then for her to come back and help these girls beat up on Stormfront. But I felt like she could have at least had a more majestic moment or a more rewarding action sequence in which she could at least get the best of Stormfront on her own in some way. I feel like that would have been a much more rewarding for her as a character because a lot of these side characters didn't get a lot of development this season. Frenchy, I really enjoyed his development, but I didn't feel like they really tied it off in any meaningful way, especially by the last episode. Mother's Milk didn't feel like he got much at all. It was mostly, Starlight had a good time. Huey had a pretty good arc, and Butcher had obviously, I think, the most impactful arc, but I felt like they might have fumbled that a little bit too. So moving on into the final, I guess like the true climax. I thought this was going to be fantastic. And I do think this was a good move, but I did have a slight problem with where it went and how they executed it, in that there's this point that comes in the end where Stormfront is about to kill Becca and Butcher really can't do anything. And her son, Ryan, who is superpowered, who never really has used his superpowers, is he's clearly getting angry, and you can see this foreboding moment where he's about to unleash his superpowers on Stormfront. And obviously, naturally, as viewers, we're like, yeah, get her. He can just absolutely torture. But knowing The Boys, something has to go wrong. So I watched Ryan's eyes light up and the screen go black as he just torches Stormfront. And then it shows Billy Butcher kind of getting up like, oh, what happened? Oh my God. And then I thought before they had shown anything after that, I was like, something was wrong here. There's some collateral damage here. They're not just going to give us this. Like, who's lost a leg? Like, what's going on? And then it flashes to Becca, who is bleeding out, like ugly wound to the neck. It is so clear that she's not going to survive this. And I was like, now obviously incredibly sad, because what an awful thing to happen. But as a writer, as someone who's really trying to analyze the story, that was brilliant. That was just a brilliant arc, because I'm seeing this fold out, and Butcher goes over to Becca and he's losing it. This is his wife. This is what he's fought both seasons for entirely. This is what he has turned his back on, his old ways and his selfish ways, and is trying to keep this promise that he made to Becca to protect Ryan, to try and get Ryan to safety. He's really had a incredibly satisfying arc up until now. Between the last season and this season, Billy Butcher has been probably the best character in the series. And now we're having to watch his wife, who he's fought for 2 seasons just to have a life with. We're having to watch her bleed out in front of his eyes. And he gets to look at the son who's not his, who is the son of his most hated superhero, stand there and cry as he's so sorry. It's such a gripping, troubling scene. The kid is crying. He's saying, "I'm so sorry, Mom. What have I done?" And we see Butcher just having to look at that kid and go, "This isn't my kid. I don't want anything to do with this super." He hates these superpowered beings, and he has to deal with this. I mean, and I'm sitting there going, oh, what an arc. He promises Becca in that last scene that he will fulfill his promise to protect Ryan. And as a writer, I'm just applauding it. I'm applauding the decision that they made as writers, because the decision, the way I'm seeing it here, this is not how it played out, but the way I'm seeing it at this point as I'm watching it is I'm going, wow. So that is the perfect way to spur Billy Butcher into a new season, a new man with a new conflict and struggle that is going to be a really rewarding, hopefully, arc. That arc being Billy Butcher has to watch his wife bleed out in front of him, and the boy who is not his, the son of a superhero who he hates, who also killed his wife. Now he has to take that kid under his wing and protect him, which is going to probably cause complications for him with his operations with the boys. It's going to make things harder on them. He's going to have to make different decisions. He's going to have to be a different man, and it's going to be incredibly hurtful for him inside to do it. But he is stepping up to the plate to be a better man, to be the man that Becca wanted, and to fulfill the promise that he made to the love of his life. That is so good. That's such good writing. And when it comes to it, I got to give it like a 6 out of 10, because that's where I thought it was going to go, but that's not exactly how it ended. Yes, elements of that were correct, but in the end, we flash forward and, obviously, Homelander comes in and he's about to kill everyone, and then Maeve stops him and threatens to show, and Homelander has we have a good way of, Maeve threatens to show the footage of him leaving people to die on the plane, and we have a really good moment where we get to see Homelander for who he truly is. It felt like he was showing some semblance of humanity for his son throughout this season. It was sick and twisted, and we hated every second of it, but it was like it was the only thing he cared about. It seemed like the only thing that he could care about was this son of his. And in this final moment, we see that he cares more about the love and adoration of these random people, the affirmation that he gets for being this superhero, than he cares to actually have access to his own son. And that is a good way of defeating Homelander. However, him just going away, I'm not sure how I feel about it, because in the end, basically I feel like we're going to have a really good villain for season 3. in order to surpass Homelander and not make him, obviously he's still going to be a character, but I don't feel like you can sell him as a main villain anymore. And hopefully they don't try to, but now that they've brought him as low as they did, showing him touching himself in the end of the final episode while standing atop a skyscraper. Obviously, if you're watching this video, you watched it, and that was gross. But like what they did to him, I feel like they've knocked him down a few notches. Yes, he's scary, but in that he's like a loose cannon, but he's not menacing as a villain anymore because I feel like they've brought him low. So I really hope they don't try and make him or allow him to still be a main villain of the series. I think he could be an antagonist. In some way, he could be an erratic force that they can do interesting things with. So I'm okay with that. But it really did take everything that was truly scary out of Homelander. But going back to Butcher's arc, where I really did feel dissatisfied was that the fact that we flash forward and Butcher just hands Ryan off to the CIA. He just hands him off to be taken away into like a witness protection type of care where he'll be hidden away so that Homelander can never find him. First of all, I have trouble figuring out how it's possible that Homelander can never find him. I mean, I assume that he'll not try to find him because he doesn't want to get exposed by Maeve, but like, I don't even see how you can hide from Homelander to begin with, so that doesn't make a ton of sense. And then just seeing Ryan get carted off in a van and Butcher leave him was really dissatisfying because I guess it makes sense on a realism level, but I really had hoped that they weren't going to play this, like the CIA swoops in or Mallory comes in and she's just like, all right, well, I'll take him. Everything's good. We fixed everything with legal. And they're like, now we can pay you and the boys to be like a kind of secret covert team to spy on superheroes. And everything is gardens and roses and Ryan will be safe. See you later. And he's pretty much just like, all right, see you later, Ryan. You're not mine anymore. And I just felt like that was a bit of a cop-out. And maybe it is indicative of Butcher's character that he would be okay with that. But I really felt like it would be a much better arc for him to be taking control of Ryan's future and trying to bring him up the way that his mother wanted. I guess that's really it. I think that seeing Butcher step up to the plate and try to be a father to a kid that's not his, as the dying wish of his wife, I really thought that would have been a much more impactful arc. But I won't go on that for too long. I think I got the point across. I just felt like it was a little dissatisfying to see it just like, all right, anyway, see you, Ryan. Hop in the van. Go be safe. It's fine. And then obviously we get to wrap everything up with the boys' crew, and it seems like they're kind of disbanding. They don't really say that they're just disbanding, but Butcher does not accept the salary positions that Mallory offered them to pay the boys to be kind of a team of their own, working undercover type of deal. He walks away. We don't really know where he's going to go or what he's going to try and do, and we don't really know if he has anything to do left. That's the other thing. I'm not really sure what he has to do left now. We didn't set him up with a goal for the next season, and that's okay. We can give him a little time. We can bring in a new conflict in the next season, but it made me not like exactly totally excited for a new season. And the same thing goes for the rest of the boys. It shows everyone getting, it shows Kimiko and Frenchy going off to dance and have a good time. Gets to see his family again. Everyone's happy. Huey and Starlight are probably going to date. Everything's is ooey gooey for them. They're in love, it seems like. And Huey is going to go work for Victoria Newman, I think that's her name. And kind of step away from the boys. It doesn't seem like any hard feelings, but he doesn't feel like he fits in there, and he wants to kind of do things the right way and be this self-righteous guy that he thinks he is. I have my own problems with that, but I'm not going to get into those. I kind of covered them earlier, but yeah, it's it's good to see them happy. It's good to see that they get a victory. So I'm not knocking that, but I felt like the way that they kind of left it with no real direction for season 3, other than the cliffhanger of having a possible new villain being the person that's been blowing people's heads up this whole season. I definitely don't feel like I don't feel like they gave us a lot to look forward to, and I don't feel like the ending was particularly satisfying. I feel like there were ways that they could have made it a lot more satisfying, and the way that they did it was just kind of like, it just left me feeling a little bit let down. Now, that being said, I still enjoyed the season immensely because I love the boys. I love what they stand for the most part, and I love the way that they execute things. I love their tone. I love the comedy, and I love a lot of these characters. So they did a good job with the season on a whole. But in regards to comparing it to the last season, it definitely did fall off just a bit. So we'll see what they can do in season 3. I hope they can come back. I like the reveal of Victoria Newman being the head splitter. In the end, kind of our last in credits type of scene, showing essentially that's the only thing that we have to allude to for the next season. And my question is that I can leave you guys with is that enough? Is that reveal of Victoria Newman being a new villain? I assume she'll have to be like the new villain, or someone's going to have to come onto the scene, because Homelander cannot be the new villain. There's no one else to really take his place right now other than Victoria. So how is she going to do that? And is she going to live up? Because Homelander has been such a great villain. I really hope they don't try and just bring Homelander back as a main antagonist. I don't think they will, but you never know. You never know what they try and do. So it just, is it enough? That's my question. Is what they've left us with enough to really spur our excitement into season 3? Now, obviously, when season 3 comes out, we'll check it out. We'll probably enjoy it. Hopefully it'll be good and they'll take it somewhere, but those are my concerns. But I've babbled long enough. I planned on this review being like 10 to 15 minutes, and I'm pretty sure we're like past the 20-minute mark. So I will stop there. I hope you guys enjoy the review. This is my first time doing a sort of more off-the-cuff special review type of thing. Up until now, I've not done any reviews, like direct reviews of books or shows or movies or anything like that. So just sharing with you guys my thoughts. Let me know what you thought of what I thought. And if you enjoyed it or agree or disagree, just like the video, comment below and let me know what you thought, and subscribe for future content. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video.